Hey everyone, we're back here with Made in Asia, the podcast for creators and entrepreneurs in the transformation experience economies in Asia. Today with the one and only John Nugent, owner and operator of the Diplomat here in Hong Kong. Man of the world, has seen a lot, has done a lot. John, what's going on?
Not much, just hanging out, having a beer in the social club at the Diplomat.
The social club at the Diplomat. Yeah. Not everybody knows about this place. It supposed to be that way, right?
Yeah, and we have a kind of 2 or 3 parts to our bar where we feature different experiences, if you will. We have what we like to call the tavern in front, very casual pub style feel with brasserie style food, and you can stand up at the bar counter or have a seat on our tall banquette and just enjoy the night. And then we have a little bit of more of a secret room that we don't necessarily we basically offer it by referral and booking only.
Okay.
And through that process, it curates a clientele that isn't afraid of a certain price point, but also we can just provide a different type of experience. We don't necessarily reject anybody, but we try to advise for that.
You have a door policy, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you had that before, right? You worked in, I think it was in Boston. You had a hotel at the Thompson Hotel.
Yeah.
Also,
the Thompson was in Seattle, but we had a pretty strict door policy up there. We had a rooftop, and it was kind of the who's who of Seattle. We would host professional athletes and different celebrities that lived and worked in Seattle at the time. And it was a tough place to get into.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how did you get into this A game of a bar? I mean, was it the place you're in is a hotel, or is it just the hard work you put in, the menu? What gets the vibe going of a place?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about bartending and bar owning and whatnot, you kind of fall into it. You know, not a lot of people go to school, except maybe if you go to one of those really nice schools in Sweden or something for hospitality. There's something about it that has like an addictive quality to it. You get the proverbial high off of a busy shift. There's adrenaline moments. There's, there's just different, a bunch of different hypothetical situations where if you do well and you accomplish it, you really start falling in love with it, and you forget about the hours, you forget about, the late nights, and you just kind of just start falling in love with that process. And I am the prototypical person of that. I started as a bar back. My mom used to love going out to restaurants. And so when I started working at a certain restaurant that my mom used to like going to, I felt, incredibly accomplished. And then it just kind of went from there. And when I got behind a bar that, my friends thought were cool, I felt super cool. And then I just started reading. I started reading different books about the hospitality industry, and it just became an obsession. And, while cocktails is basically my segue for F&B and hospitality, it's really just that interaction with people constantly and meeting these different people and presenting situations just like the one we're in, where it was just over conversations over a table or over a bar top. And that's how we got it going.
Right. And so Diplomat is the first concept you've done sort of soup to nuts, everything in creating it? Or
Yeah. So, basically, myself and, a handful of investors, some silent partners, some not silent partners, who have a lot of input on the space, Kevin Poon, Gerald Lee, who are incredibly, thoughtful and, are very logistically savvy in some cases and just very big picture in others. And we sat down, the 3 of us, and we put this bar on paper and how we wanted to accomplish it. And, yes, we have like some concept driven things, but we really wanted to make a bar that was for Hong Kong. And that's just not to be said, like, we're only here to serve people that live in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's an international city, so you can come from the States and not be overwhelmed by the style of service we give. You can come from Japan and have like a really delicate experience, if you will. And London, Paris, anywhere, South America, even, like, we really have made this bar very malleable to different personalities and different people from around the world.
Okay.
It's just unfortunate we haven't shown that to anybody yet.
Okay. So how long did it take you to get this all together? So you put it to paper. Previously you worked at Lily Bloom, right? This was
Lily and Bloom, yeah. So so Lily and Bloom was a great bar. Everybody had been to Lily and Bloom at least once. It had a really storied history of around for 8 years.
Huge space, right?
Yeah, big space, 2 floors, restaurant on the bottom, bar on top.
Cigar tasting room, not
cigar room,
yeah. Blind
and
Pig.
The Blind Pig, very, very popular. And so we had a lot of people from different walks of life coming in. A lot of accomplished chefs been through there that, now chefs that been there own a couple of restaurants. And, unfortunately, Calvin Koo, the owner, passed away and they decided to sell it and, which was probably for the better. And, during that process, I sat down with Gerald and, he talked to me about a handful of things. And I just said to him, I really just want to own a bar and I need help. And, he really gave me a very good pathway into doing that. And now we're even starting to, things are very precarious still. We're even talking about now moving on to a second concept. So it's very, very
exciting.
Cool.
Okay. Before we talk about that and sort of the timing of it all, where do you start when it comes to creating a concept? I mean, the first time you did it, but you've seen a bunch of other places, right? So what's your thought process when you say okay, you had the venue first, the space was...
To steal a line from a good friend of mine, Becca Lee Franks, who owns the Pontiac, we throw around terms like concept a lot, but it's about culture, not concept. Okay. So we try to create a culture of what we want to present to our guests and how our staff works and how we treat each other, both professionally and hospitality wise. And then we kind of mirror that from there. When it comes to the space, basically, we went around to, all these different venues and we were kind of in agreement that we did not want to be some, atypical ground floor, hustle bustle, in the middle of the neighborhood type of thing. We wanted to be off the beaten track, but, not super far, but, like a little bit off the beaten track, hidden. We did throw around, terms like dark alleys, downstairs basement kind of vibe. And, we fell into this and when we were concepting the space out, we wanted to have 2 different venues where we could apply to specifically 2 different type of guests who want 2 different types of experience.
Which is very unusual for a bar, no, as it goes.
Yeah. There are definitely a handful of bars around the world that have 2 different concepts going at the same time. But I don't think to this degree. We have presented something where you can walk into the Diplomat and literally have a beer and a burger and that could be it and just enjoy yourself. And we encourage that and we want people to have that.
Great food. Everybody should try it out.
Yeah. We're very proud of our food, but then also, but then we have this other experience where people can come in, have a beautiful cocktail. And as the night progresses, we can even ramp it up a little bit and we can try to change that experience to the point where we can throw you your own private party.
Right. You got DJ right behind here is a DJ booth. So it's coming down basically, right?
Yeah.
A good night.
Yeah. If you want. Yeah. Exactly.
It can happen. Make it happen. So timing wise, let's speak about culture because that's pretty exciting. It's very difficult to nurture and develop a culture. You have a toolbox where you say, this is what we do, or is it every time you go in a place, you sort of, have a different approach to, what the culture is. So you have some basics, respect and all that.
Yeah.
How does culture develop?
Well, it's repetition, it's consistency, it's being thoughtful, but, and it's kind of and it depends on, what the investors / owners want. Sometimes the investors / owners just want this thing executed a certain way. And from somebody who's worked ops for quite a long time, we just do it to that degree. We make sure it's done right. And we make sure we provide good hospitality. We do strong standard operating procedures and we go from there. when you have somebody who comes from such a heavy ops background, in these bartender driven bars, that's where you kind of develop this culture, because we are here. We're kind of generating revenue through hospitality. We're not generating like hospitality through revenue, if you will, so it's, we don't say, oh, you spend a lot, we treat you better. We try to have this consistency of service, and then, we reward loyalty as far as guests go through hospitality and whatnot. And then we try to retain guests through other measures as well.
So when you go into a bar anywhere in the world, what kind of pointers are you looking for? What's going down? Can you tell quickly is like this place is legit, or how do you size up?
It's so funny about the difference between restaurants and bars, right? Like, especially now with Instagram, there's very few surprises. You kind of you see some stuff on Instagram, you kind of know what to expect, and you walk in there. Restaurants, even if the decor is not to your liking and whatnot, if the food on the plate is really good and beautiful and tastes delicious, you kind of get past that. With the bar, it's all encompassing. It really is. Like, I've been to bars that I will go to tomorrow that don't serve good drinks.
Okay.
But the fact that what it is and who they are, it's so special. And I've been to bars that serve unbelievably great drinks, like really balanced, really delicious. But I don't know if I'll ever go back there again, just because I didn't feel comfortable there. The vibe wasn't good. So it really is a collection of a lot of things. I like to walk into a bar. I see warm lighting. I like to be greeted pretty quickly. I don't want to, I don't necessarily want to feel like I need to be guided, but, just shown in the right direction of where I should go to make me the happiest. Like, oh, if you're more of a bar person, there's the bar, or you like tables, sit over there, like, oh, okay, great. You're giving me options on what I like. And then finally, when I start sitting down at the bar or at a table, but most likely the bar, I'm looking at the menu, I'm seeing how it's constructed, whether it's more trying to tell me a story or if it's trying to be more volume service, where a lot of information is right in front of me, so I can just bang out a cocktail order.
What menus don't work? I mean, you've seen probably a lot of menus. Anything where it's like, good Lord, this doesn't make sense to me.
I mean,
is
there's
it a very
plenty.
personal thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I have a hard time with these like menus that try to tell you a story. I first off, if you believe in your concept, you yourself have to be there to tell people what it is, no matter what, whether it's this complicated menu or very straightforward. Either you or your staff really have to be on the same page about how you present your, concept culture, right? So if you just get a menu and unless it's very, very specific and very well laid out, most of the time you need a little bit of help.
Right.
So, if you just give me a menu and it's like this storytelling thing and I'm like flipping page after page after page and pictures and it's beautiful, but it's like, where's the drink? It gets a little daunting sometimes.
Right. You just want to get straight down to business.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. So you opened obviously in March 2020 when
officially kind of, yeah.
Officially, yeah. And you had the we had in Hong Kong, it was not smooth sailing from last summer onwards, basically. Yeah. So, and then we have COVID. So how does all that impact you? As you mentioned earlier, you don't have tourists or international visitors to the ber, but it seems it's popping every night. So it's not like it somehow you managed to get this bar launched in the most challenging of times. Is it because you're consistent and all the things you mentioned earlier, or you expected it to be even crazier when borders open up? I mean, how's that? Yeah,
the people that have invested in this bar, me, we had an idea, we had a thought, about what we can present to people and who we want to attract. So yeah, I think when the borders open up, it's a different ballgame for a lot of us, and we're excited.
Absolutely.
We can't wait. But till then, we love and breathe Hong Kong, and the people that come here, will never be forgotten, especially in our first year, which, knock on wood and everything, when Diplomat's 10 years old, we'll be like telling people about the people that came to our bar our first year and just, how tough a year it was. And, between government regulations going up and down, how many capacity, the real killer camp being open past 6. But people still came, people still supported.
Yeah. Daytime drinking is a thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And, and we changed a little bit of how we presented it, but people came out and, it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been perfect, but, we're pretty proud of how we're still getting along. So, and we're still pushing. Like I get pushed every day and I love it and I hate it from, our guys because they know what we're capable of. And we're still not there.
And we talked about earlier bits. You've seen the US, Boston, Seattle. You went to Greece, right?
Yeah. Greece was more. I mean, I guess I learned. I don't know if I learned anything in Greece, but I definitely got a perspective for sure.
Yeah. Okay. I guess it was a busy place, like a tourist hotspot.
Yeah.
It was not a quiet back.
Very short history of me in Greece was. I bartended at a hospital-themed nightclub called Rehab.
Okay.
And our hours were from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So basically, it was an overnight shift. And from about 11:30 midnight, you were rammed until about 4:30. And it had every type of person from every type of part of the world. And they were all there just to party. And you worked 6 days a week. And it was crazy.
So you've seen obviously the US in 2 East Coast, West Coast, Europe. I mean the madness of Europe and in Hong Kong. So what from a bar perspective, the clientele you get in, is there anything you could say, or do these markets evolve differently in terms of the cocktails or the drinks that are sort of popular? Is there that you get? If you think back, like 10 years ago, it was Schweppes was our tonic water.
Yeah.
Now we have like Fever Tree and a lot of choices, right?
Quite a few.
And it's for the better, right?
Yeah. 3 cents dry tonic. Shout out.
But there's still a lot of places you go where there's only one tonic and it's pretty rough, right?
Yeah.
Beefeater gin with Schweppes was a thing at one point, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
so we also had a big explosion in sort of gin, craft sort of small batch gin and all this stuff, where local producers come out and try their thing, and there's now a huge selection that wasn't there to that extent maybe 20 years ago, right? When it was all big brands, Diageo were kind of dominating the scene. So what do you make of that, the bigger trend of how beverage spirits has evolved? And
I mean, it's the trend goes where the consumer goes. So you've definitely seen the reason why you see more tonics and even more spirits is because the guest is starting to care what they put in their body. You can say the same thing for culinary, right? Like French cuisine, like high-end French cuisine was pretty limited up until, I don't know, a couple of decades ago. And, the most you would see was obviously in France, but then it was just like these really large market cities, right? Like if you wanted to go to there'd probably be one in each city, and then quite a few in like New York and LA and the bigger markets, and obviously around the world. But now you can't even count how many Italian, French cuisines there are out there because it's delicious and it's great. The same thing goes with alcohol. People see something that is different, cool, weird, delicious, and they want to try it and they fall in love with it and they keep going. And obviously highballs, in any aspect, whether it's vodka, soda, gin and tonic, or even a whiskey highball, they're a part of that mantra. So instead of having, I won't say Beefeater because I love Beefeater, but, but like,
Gordon's maybe,
just a low shelf, I don't want to get in trouble, low shelf 7-Eleven gin, with a warm tonic where everybody was drinking that not that long ago, to, making sure your tonic's cold, making sure it's a good quality gin, making sure you have good ice, and making sure you have like a nice fruit. People really care about what they're drinking now, and they're very specific. You know, I mean, it was literally an overnight thing where somebody gave me, hell for not putting a cucumber in a Hendrix and tonic. You know, like I remember that day so vividly when I poured a Hendrix and tonic, and that guy looked at me like I was crazy for not putting a cucumber in it.
Where was this?
This was in Seattle. So this was my first bartending job, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, man, this is my first time pouring this. I had no idea, and I've never not put a cucumber. I mean, I usually ask the guests, but, I mean, that's what people want, and whether it's a trend or something they read, but that's.
Yeah. Any spirits that excite you more than others? I mean, would you say?
Any spirits?
In spirits, yeah.
Yeah.
You say like gin versus vodka versus pisco, like smaller stuff.
I'm a huge American whiskey fan.
Okay.
It is one of the most scrutinized spirits in the world, probably like second to tequila, maybe. As Jay Kahn from Co could probably tell you, but it has a huge litany of rules behind it. It cannot be a certain thing on so many different levels, whether it's charred American oak, aged a certain amount of time, proofed a certain way, the mash bill. So there's a lot of scrutiny behind it, and even after all those rules, it still has to taste good.
Yeah.
And it's really, really good. And I really enjoy the different presentations of it, between, and you can just go down the rabbit hole of weeded bourbons and, antique and vintage, and trying stuff from yesteryear with different distillers, and people will drink it just because, it's vintage, but also you get to try it from a different distiller who had a different thought process, because it really does make a difference.
And the crazy thing is that the distillers or the masters, they only have in their lifetime, only have 5 batches where they can really, after the aging process in their career, right?
Yeah.
You have a very long sort of period where you just don't know what's going to work or not, right?
Yeah. I mean,
nerve-wracking in a way.
Jimmy Russell always said, he's the head distiller of Wild Turkey. He always made this joke. He's like, I wish you guys told me that rye was going to be so popular. Otherwise I would have made a lot more of it.
Exactly.
Cause he constantly sells out.
So how do you stay on top of trends? I mean, you got to educate yourself, right? There's nobody comes around and teaches you something. So how do you learn? How do you grow? How do you see what's happening?
I mean, I'm pretty classically driven on the sense of cocktails. So there's kind of like 2 aspects I look at it. I kind of see what people like and look for in drinks, especially in the community that you're in. But at the same time, I also try to, gravitate toward my own trends, I mean, I'm a bar that, that serves an Irish coffee and chocolate chip cookies at night,
Very delicious, yeah.
At midnight. So, I mean, I try to give people things that I enjoy and what, resonates, like certain memories, and just try to deliver on those. If you keep following trends, it gets you in a lot of trouble, because it forces you. I mean, it's good to be forced to be creative, but it puts you really against the wall if you start, for lack of a better term, like a writer's block, if you will. So it's good to set your own trends through what you believe in, and then you kind of go from there.
So on Instagram, I saw you were experimenting with 4 different
4 or 5 infusions. Yeah, just like 4 or 5. We're coming out with a handful of cocktails probably in the next week or so. And once again, it's not right. Like, we're not trying to, invent the wheel. We just take flavors that we really care about and booze that we believe in. There's not a booze on our back shelf that we think is just like, to get paid, or we just need it to make people happy.
Yeah.
I have amaretto. I have Di Serono amaretto. Like, I like Di Serono amaretto. If you don't like it, I'm really sorry.
Fernet you like as well, right?
I like Fernet Branca. That's just, to be fair, I'm a little, I've overdosed on it. I used to work at a bar called Citizen Public House in Boston. We had Fernet Branca on tap.
Wow.
And so
it's like Jaeger on tap type of thing.
Yeah. And it was, I've kind of lived my life through that tap at one aspect or another. Yeah, we put a lot of stuff on our shelf that we care. We put everything on our shelf that we care about, and so
you rotate that a lot yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly trying stuff. I'm probably the biggest pain in their ass to my suppliers because I see something and I'm like, I want a sample of this immediately because I want to mess with it a little bit, and then the minute I like it, I'm yelling at them to make it cheaper, and then so I can make it into a cocktail. But yeah, so yeah, we're always playing around with stuff. We do a lot of fat washing. We do a lot of infusions. We do it kind of in an old school esoteric way. We don't do rotovaps or centrifuges, nothing against them. We like to take that process and understand it a little bit more. And, that way, part of our culture is to have our bartenders who are junior to basically, once they leave here, they can go somewhere and make a profitable experience. I'm a big believer in whoever works for me can, if they put in the time and effort here, can leave and then operate a full-fledged bar with the understanding that, of costs and how to make something delicious and how to go into another place and not be like, I need, this $10,000 piece of equipment and this $10,000 piece of equipment, and then we'll be the greatest bar ever.
So they have the tools of the trade, they have the understanding. So proper, almost apprenticeship type of thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, we don't, yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't use those labels, but that's the point, it seems very superficial and silly to say, but at the end of the day, we are all trying to make a buck. And, if you can't give your staff the tools to do that later in life, you're just using them until, for your own gains. Yeah. So we're trying, the staff that's here now at Diplomat, every day, like, our newest guy, he's just on the floor, but, because he hasn't started prepping yet, but all of our staff preps, and they understand these different processes and how things are made and how things are done. And if they don't get it, they have to come up to me and then we have to talk about it, and that's even with silly stuff like equipment. Why doesn't this equipment work properly? And then we have to talk about it but yeah, I mean, we're right now we're working on consommes. So yeah.
Right. And so a successful bar is loyal customers. What makes success in a bar? Other than making money, obviously. Right?
Yeah. Bottom line. I mean, I think it's relative. I mean, you need people to come in to pay for the rent, but I think the idea is that if you are executing what you wanted to the clientele that you were looking for, then I think you're a success. You need to make enough to put the lights on and keep the rent and pay your staff, and then hopefully have some change in your pocket. So yeah, I mean, a huge part of it is retaining guests and, creating that, and, creating, loyalty amongst guests. But, we don't think of guests as customers, right? 7-Eleven has customers. We have guests.
Right.
So, we try to have that humble approach to it, if you will. And we just want to make sure we're throwing a party every night and people enjoy coming in here and, having a good time.
Absolutely. Now, you do a lot of pop-ups and sort of collabs. You did Wagyu Mafia, I think, was one.
Yeah. So I actually opened up Wagyu Mafia and so, luckily, through just opening with them as their general manager at the beginning, I obviously I can make drinks. And so we were able to put, myself and Wagyu Mafia and do different collabs in different aspects. So it's been really exciting for me. I've got to work with some of the world's best chefs. We got to work with Thomas Perry from Brat, who is one of the most accomplished chefs right now in London. And then, we got to have an incredible experience with, Albert Adria, famed of El Bulli, obviously, but now, runs Tickets and, a handful of other bars. And it was such a cool experience working with him. Very nerve wracking. And, just being able to put a cocktail in front of him and have him taste it and just, getting that nod of approval. A very cool moment. And, it's one of those things, when you make it a sports analogy, you might not see it on the stat sheet, but it was a very cool moment for me to see that. So, and that's just it was very personal.
What feedback did you get Was it more insightful, or was it just like, this is a pretty damn good thing, and that was like a one-liner?
Yeah, it was just, no, it wasn't like, I mean, English is his second language, and but like, I mean, he speaks good English, and but like, he's focused on his food, right? He's focused on making his guys work, and his guys are so intense, and they're great guys, and they're so intense, that 3 Michelin star mentality, and Spanish, and just very like, very hardcore, but very great guys. And so they were very focused on what they were doing. And so, who knows, maybe I was just being a pest to him, but he just like, but just for my personal satisfaction, just like him tasting and going, good. Yeah. Very nice. Very refreshing. Very good. Okay. Yeah. This will go well with my unbelievably expensive meal and unbelievably expensive Wagyu that Hisato presented. And so, yeah. It's good.
How about ingredients? I mean, we talked about spirits. You have a lot of fruits and other ingredients that go into your cocktail. So when we talk about flavors, sour, bitter, sweet, salty, umami, how do you navigate those? I mean, when you start, because you take time to experiment, right? You kind of have your sandbox kind of hour where you come in early or something and you start a creative process. Where do you get your best ideas, and how do you put it together?
So basically, to kind of put that in perspective, I guess I just go from the training that I come from. So as a bartender, specifically on the East Coast, you are bludgeoned with classic cocktails. They just shove them into your brain. And so by the end of a good long tenure at a well-accomplished cocktail bar on the East Coast, I mean, I can't specifically say for the West Coast because I didn't come up bartending there. You get so many classics and the beginning of like a good encyclopedia knowledge of contemporary classics. So classics that have been made in the last like 20 to 25 years. And so I use that as my basically my foundation for wherever I start. And so, and then a very simple approach of, we need to have an alcohol aspect to it. We need to have a sweet component to it. We need to have a bitter, acidic component to it. And then, we need to obviously involve water somehow. So, and that's how we make our drinks. That's how I make every single drink, whether I use 2 or 3 sweet components and then 1 or 2 bitter components, and then even like a dual base of spirit. Like there's always those kind of those.
It has to be sweet. So,
take for instance a Negroni, right? Like a Negroni, nobody would necessarily classify as a sweet drink.
A lot of sugar in there.
But, you have gin, you have something that's literally called sweet vermouth. So that's your sweet component. You have your Campari, which is obviously quite a bit of sugar in there, but also very bitter. And then, you're obviously stirring it. So, you can take that to a martini, a Manhattan, those are that's literally like the definition of a cocktail, right? And so we use those components and we try to always follow those kind of rules, and then we see where we can kind of bend them.
Right. So any exciting, most of the classic cocktails, at least in the old days, were made in hotel bars for some reason.
Yeah.
Why is that? They had just a standard, or they had a clientele, or was there other bars just didn't serve cocktails? Or, how come hotel bars have done so much better?
Well, I think, reading just, I'm trying to rack my brain through like Dave Wondrich's book from Imbibe, or like even like a book called The Great Good Place. The local watering hole, if you will, was, it was more of a place just to meet up with friends and have 2 fingers of whiskey and a beer and pretty simple, straightforward stuff. I think with traveling, especially in yesteryear, and we're talking like 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way up until now, traveling always involved a sense of elegance, and cocktails were always involved in that. And so I think that that was a huge part of it. And and there's always disposable income in a hotel. You rarely hear of a dive bar in a hotel, unless now, especially if it's like conceptually driven, which is kind of silly. But I think that would probably be the main focus of why, even now, standalone bars, there has to be a sense, like, there's very few that don't have like a sense of like really like humble surroundings, if you will, as opposed to a hotel bar that, you know, like unlimited budgets and everything's top of the line, and you know, and good for them, you know, if you work there, man.
Hoteliers might disagree on the unlimited budget, but I get your point.
From a bar owner's perspective, and you know, I'm working in a hotel. I am very familiar with that they have budgets, but I'm saying like for build outs and stuff like that, you know, sometimes you walk into a space and you're like, that's crazy. So I have no shade whatsoever. Like, you know, I've walked into some amazing hotel bars and been like, wow, like incredible.
Do you pay a lot of attention to interior design and what's going on from that?
I think you have to. I mean, especially if you want to open up your own spot. I mean, you have to look at you know, if you're looking at just a space very like superficially, or like, you know, it's like lighting, logistics, and just overall ambiance. Like, did they nail it? Did they not nail it? You know, there are so many pretty spaces that just don't make sense logistically. And there are so many spaces that are too bright, too dark, too, you know, everything. So, and then there's people who just absolutely nail it and they keep nailing it. So good for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of, we talked about pop-ups a little bit in collabs. You also did, in the US at least, festivals, and there's also competitions, right? How does that fit into the, there's a list of best bars in Asia, I guess, right?
Yep.
Is that important to get onto a list like that, or is that a nice byproduct? You know, you can pat yourself in the back, or
it's a question to get in trouble on. So 50 best. If we were to ever get something like that, it would be very, very cool, and we would appreciate it. And, you know, yeah, definitely, you know, celebrate in our own way and just be happy to receive it. You know, 50 Best has done a lot for bars, especially bars and restaurants, especially in this last year. So, it's, you know, a list selected by our peers, and they do a really good job at picking some of the best bars around, 50 best bars and 50 best, Asia's 50 best as well.
Yeah. Tough now, I guess, with the traveling restrictions. It's hard to judge right outside of Europe.
But that being said, you know, we shouldn't, we shouldn't be opening up bars for awards. You know, we should be opening up bars to lead, you know, cultural, identity for our cities. You're looking around the world and you're seeing, you know, really hard times on different restaurants and bars. And a huge thing is that, you know, that they say about it is like, you know, the food identity of a city really defines the culture of that city as well. And so the same thing goes with, you know, bars. You know, if you were to take me to Milwaukee, the sense of identity of bars there is so much different than Tokyo, right? It's a part of the culture. It's a part of who they are. It's in their blood. And so when you open up a bar, that's what you're trying to present. You're going, hey, this is what I can add to our culture, our community. And this is, and also I want to be a part of it. You know, whenever we have a new bar come to the neighborhood, you know, we don't view it as competition. Obviously, you know, we're all trying to make our buck, but it's more like, welcome to the neighborhood, and thanks for being a part of it, and thanks for letting us be a part of it. Right.
You got to help each other out maybe sometimes too, right?
I speak very highly of, ourselves as bartenders and chefs. You can make a argument for artists, but, you know, we are the cultural innovators of communities, you know, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. And
in Hong Kong, you have a pretty broad following, right? I mean, there's a lot of money in this town, so to speak, that is not afraid of spending it on a good product.
Yeah.
Which is not always said. You couldn't say the same for other towns where maybe you don't have that sort of audience, right?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, we want to be applicable to everyone, and we want people to have different experiences no matter who they are. So we just want to make that place. Yeah.
So we talked about the classic cocktails and sort of Asia's best bars. How does a classic cocktail become a classic? I mean, we heard of a pina colada or something was done in a hotel, a bar, as we mentioned earlier. But how does some cocktails make it to like global fame, basically. On
I mean, I think a good way to think about it now is like you have to look at the contemporary classics. You have to see first off, if you want your cocktail.
Sorry, what are in the contemporary classics?
So like, let's say like a Manhattan is a classic cocktail, obviously, right? I would say the prototypical contemporary classic, especially right now, since they just opened, is the penicillin.
Okay.
It's a Scotch-driven drink with honey and ginger, and then it has a lemon, and then a float of Lafroig over the top of it. So it's spicy. It has that nice sweetness from the honey, good amount of smoke from not only the Lafroig but from the Scotch itself, and it's just a fun, good drink. That was invented by a guy named Sam Ross at a bar called at the time I think he was at Milk and Honey, but now he owns a bar called Attaboy. So that is like a contemporary classic. I think he made it, I don't know, around 10 years ago. A gentleman named Giuseppe Gonzalez has made a variety of different contemporary classics, Trinidad Sour, Infante. Audrey Saunders did the Gin Mule, Hot Charlotte, and I think that was Murray Stenson. And, and then there's just like, Joaquin Simo did the Naked and Famous, and a couple other drinks.
Okay.
So it goes on. Some are more well known.
Bars, basically a lot of clientele and.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, popular bartenders at popular bars when the boom of cocktails was starting to hit, and they just hit the nail right on the head. They believed in that drink. It's easy to sell. Like, I mean, you tell somebody that, hey, this has got whiskey, lemon, and ginger, and they're like, sign me up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you tell somebody that says gin, sugar, and mint in it with ginger beer, sign me up. It's like, yeah, keep it coming.
Go. Yeah. Cool. So what, well, we talked about trends and how you shouldn't follow trends, but, you have your signature cocktails as well. I think was it a Holy Cow? Was it a
very old cow?
Very old cow. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't, I try to just keep pushing that down people's throats. I really like that drink. It's, kind of in between, a Rosita and a Brooklyn. So it's, I'll just give the specs: 45 ml of Mezcal, 20 ml of Aperol, 15 of Punta Mess, which is more of a bittersweet vermouth, and then like 8 to 10 ml of maraschino with a couple dashes of Peychaud, stirred, served over upper on a rock, and then orange zest discard.
All right. So if you have a good bar selection at home, you can do that on your own, right?
Yeah,
it shouldn't be too tricky. What kind of mezcal would you go for?
When we first were making it is with Del Maguey Vita. Some people find that to be a little spicy. I personally love it. And that was once again, I always say what I was raised on. When I mean raised, I mean coming up in the bar industry. But so Del Maguey was very prevalent then, and we were using it constantly. And so I always use Del Maguey Vita, but you can use their Chichicapa as well, and that's pretty good, even though the price point gets a little bit higher. But Alapus, really, really good. Their Balthazar is perfect for it as well. And yeah.
Okay. So if somebody's looking to create a culture, a bar, go out there on their own, what would you, as a piece of advice, anybody listening says like, hey, a lot of people have this dream, at one point they want to run a bar or a restaurant. So in the case of a bar, cocktail bar, what would you tell them?
My thing is what I always say to people, funny enough, I make a really silly analogy, but I go, if they're like, yeah, we want to open up a bar, and they're really excited about it, or like they're like, hey, we want to open up a restaurant, they're really excited about it. I go, great. You want to would you like to have a baby right now? And they're like, either they say no or, oh, I already have a kid. Would you like another one? And they go, if they say yes, then I say, well, then maybe you're in the right mindset to have a bar. If they say no, then it's like, you are not ready. Like, and that might mean you have the best concept in the world, you have these really thoughtful ideas. It's a full-time job on top of a full-time job. There's a leak every day. There is, there's an email from someone about something. There's an event that's coming up. There's, and these are, some of these problems are good problems, right? but they still can add up, you know, and then, you know, just the constant, you know, status of being relevant, you know, and striving for that and making sure you're providing a good bar experience every day.
So staying relevant, we talk about that. Is that through being out there, collaborations with others, or, I mean, not promotions obviously is not how you stay relevant. So
yeah,
it's
weird, you know, I mean, there's great restaurants and bars that don't necessarily have this like huge global social clout, but, are busy day in and day out. And so I think you have to remember that the people that come in are the ones that you need to take care of. And then, but then with the collabs and whatnot, that really provides opportunity in a variety of different ways. And I think it can become very exciting for your bar if you do it correctly. But at the end of the day, it really matters about who walks in those doors, and you have to make sure that they're happy by the time they leave, or not happy, like extremely excited that they came.
So it's a lot about consistency and training and all that stuff. That
I mean,
fundamentals basically.
Yeah, you know, if my staff ever hears this podcast, you know, a thing that we constantly harp on is water. It's kind of like a thing where it doesn't matter who you are, where you're at. If you're an investor just stopping in, we just give you a glass of water. It's the least we can do. It's free. It's hot outside in Hong Kong 8 months out of the year. Here's a water. And we can go from there. You know, and even if people sometimes say we don't want any more water, we make jokes, you know, it's like, hey, it's free flow. It's okay. You know, don't worry about it. So, and that's just part of it.
Okay. So what about a landlord? Probably you get now, over time, you get approached by people that say like, well, we like your bar. Why don't you open one in our hotel or whatever, right? I mean, people look for ideas, or they don't have ideas, and then they look for people with ideas, which could be you. Any advice to them? Like, how do you get the right people into your project or into your development?
I think, I mean, you know, you have to have a good lawyer, but you have to. You have to understand where that person, from their perspective, is coming from. Are they trying to, like, for instance, like if they wanted to open up a Diplomat in a hotel, you know, what exactly do they need from our end? Is it just like they want our name, and you know, some of that we would not be cool with, and some of it maybe we would, but it's hard to say unless we got officially approached. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you have to really look. We've come into a thing where if you are good at what you do, you can get approached by quite a few people, and sometimes it's hard to say no to that check in front of you, but it could be a really big opportunity to fail in a certain way. So, you have to really look at a big picture standpoint, and don't look at the next 6 months to a year. Look at your next 2 years with this project, because, you know, if you're really thinking about it long term, you know, you're in the long game, and you need to make sure that this is sustainable for quite some time.
Right. And the industry has evolved a little bit as well, right? As you say, the last 10, 20 years has probably, or 10 years has seen a lot more attention towards cocktails and all that globally, right?
I mean, yeah, you know, it goes back to the thing we were saying. People just care about what they like, you know, what they like to drink, you know. I mean, there's plenty of people out there who, you know, just want to have the cheapest, coldest lager and a gin and tonic, and man, go get it. But honestly, I mean, what's great about those drinks is you can get them anywhere. So get them anywhere. Yeah. But, you know, what makes these bars and restaurants special is that they're offering something that you can't get everywhere. You know, they're offering an opportunity that you can, you know, try something different, cool, and weird, and hopefully become iconic behind it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. We're wrapping up soon. But one question I did want to ask you: in the next 10 years, what do you think will be the biggest change for your, you know, for the bars globally or bars in Hong Kong?
Next 10 years?
Take it 5. I mean, what change do you see coming? You need to be ready for?
Well, I mean, I think you are going to see this cultural. I mean, you're going to see this revolution of bars where it's hard to say, but, you know, I'll use the example of of Penicillin, our new neighbors. Penicillin, that old space used to be a bar called Buddha Lounge, and that place would go from, I think, 1 a.m. in the morning to about
7 or so.
I mean,
I was never there. So.
I used to wake up at like 10 a.m. sometimes on a Sunday, and I'd walk by it and they were still going.
Yeah.
And now it is a sustainable closed loop bar with a fermentation room. So if that is one indication of where things are headed, like I think that's what you're going to see, you know, for good and for bad. You know, I think you're going to see a lot of really, really thought out driven concepts or concepts that people are like, this can work, and they don't. But, and I think that's the direction you're going to start seeing stuff. For us, I think we're going to keep seeing these trends, but we're going to kind of go by the beat of our own drum. You know, I honestly think if you walk into our bar, people don't recognize this as anywhere else. You can tell it has classic features, but it is a bar all its own, and we're really proud of that. And yeah, I mean, so I think you're going to just start seeing those type of really thoughtful concepts. I mean, you know, you can just pick all these bars out that actually had bars in it before that were you went, like, look at Jay with Koa. Like, the bar before that was kind of like this weird pseudo French bar, and those guys were really nice. And then Jay took that space and just made it into this mezcal haven. And it's so thoughtfully so thoughtfully thought out and, but like really just conceptualized beautifully. And just from the moment you walk in to the time you sit down, it's really, really good. And he's done a spectacular job, and he deserves everything. So, I mean, I think you're going to see these places where people were like, hey, let's open this. This would be cool, to like really putting pen down to paper and really thinking out the whole space from like entering to sitting. And
there's more talent out there now as well, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the experience.
Yeah. And I think you're going to see that from bartender driven bars. You know, if I can, you know, if this gets out to, you know, the world, you know, when this gets out to the world, you know, my biggest thing is if you see a talented bartender putting in the work day in and day out.
His name is John Nugent.
Yeah, thank you. No, but like give them the tools and the money, and if they fail, they fail. But like you are more than likely going to get a thoughtful concept and a thoughtful bar out of it. Not everyone can succeed. Obviously, the statistics show that, but I would say, you know, instead of just having a bunch of buddies come together and be like, we should open this type of bar, get somebody who's really good at what they do and that is kind of an underdog and has some creativity, and let him and or especially her an opportunity to open up something for you. And I think that's the other trend, especially in Asia. I think female-driven bars and female-driven concepts are and will and should start taking over
so
quite
you
a bit.
mentioned the Pontiac is one, obviously, and then there's
You have Mei Chow,
yeah.
You have the Pontiac, super underdog of a lady. Anne Sophie runs the Soho House Bar program. I mean, that's a beast, and she is really, really good. And then there's other, Holly Graham writes for Drink Magazine, and she's kind of like a mover and shaker about town. And, you know, if something in the drink world is happening, not to say, you know, I'm going to probably give her a big head if she hears this, but like it kind of has to go through her. Wow. In Hong Kong in some aspects. So at least on the international stage in some aspects. So she's very much a part of the drink culture. And so she really helps with a lot of what we do. And she gives me grief. It's pretty funny, you know, about like not like, you know, making sure if I'm a part of something that other female bartenders are a part of, and she's right. And we try to, so I think you're going to see a lot of that as well. You know, I think the future is female in that aspect. So
yeah.
Good for them.
So anybody going into the trade of becoming a bartender, bar operator, owner, what do you expect? Long hours, little pay, that sort of, and great moments and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what profession you get into, if you were looking to getting paid within like a year or two, like you're probably not going to succeed. Like whether that be a lawyer or, maybe even like a surgeon, right? Like, I mean, how many years of school and BS do you have to go through before you can actually like do something meaningful?
Chop somebody up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right. And get paid for it well. So, the same goes with bartending. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like this switch that you never turn off. Yeah, you can go, have a day off and, have a break for yourself. But, it's kind of like never turning that switch off,
you
like,
live it, right?
Yeah, you kind of have to be embedded into it. And it gets frustrating because you want to take a moment for yourself. But then there is that addictive quality where it's just like, you can't get away from it. You Jones for it. I mean, if it fires you up, I mean, you have to remember that fire when you hate it.
All right, guys, that's it. That's a wrap for today. Thanks a ton to John, fantastic man of the hour. He's the owner and operator of the Diplomat here in Hong Kong, a man who lives and breathes bar. I guess fantastic to have you. Thanks a ton. Your Instagram handle is
at P as in Paul Nuge, Nuge.
Nuge. So awesome. Thanks so much for having me here in the social club at Diplomat.
Thanks for being here. And thanks for having a beer with me.
Cheers to that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's our own beer, Diplomat American Pale.